Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation in Spain. Day 147 of the current situation, and it's all about another area in Spain being forced into a lockdown, a town in Castilla y León close to Burgos, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Firstly, a big thanks to people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there. Big thanks to people that supported the channel through a small donation. You can see your names here. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your support. Now, let's get into some of the news. And as I said, it's all about another place being locked down. 32,000 people in a place called Aranda del Duero in the Burgos province went into isolation yesterday because of the health situation. And this decision has been met with indignation and uncertainty by the local population. Neighbours complained that it's an unfair measure because tests are being done on a massive scale, but they do not have anyone hospitalized for coronavirus. Spanish authorities have ordered 32,000 people into lockdown in the central riverside town of Aranda del Duero in a bid to slow the spread of the virus. Known for its vineyards, Aranda del Duero residents will find their movements restricted to the absolute minimum and be barred from entering or leaving the town, which lies 150 kilometers north of Madrid. So as we can see, people there showing their indignation at being locked down and what they regard as being an unfair measure, and blaming more testing being done for the reason for their lockdown. And as we saw there, the original lockdown was for 2 weeks, but a judge came out yesterday and changed the duration of the lockdown to 1 week. So a 1 week lockdown for people in that particular town. Now, as we know, in recent times, many European countries have been warning their citizens against travelling to Spain. The UK, as we know, putting that 14-day quarantine on people returning. France recommending against travelling to certain places in Spain. Belgium, of course, doing something similar as well. And as we can see here, a map of the situation. Spain, a risky destination. Which European countries force quarantine after visiting us? As we can see here on the map of Europe, we've got 3 different colours. The turquoisey blue meaning a quarantine or a PCR test in certain places in Spain. The countries in dark blue have a mandatory quarantine on people returning from any part of Spain. And the lighter blue country here, France, recommends people not travelling to certain areas in Spain, but without a quarantine when they return. So lots of European countries, as we can see there, believing that Spain is too risky at the moment, and of course, as I said, recommending against visiting Spain this summer. Now, as we have mentioned in recent videos, Spain's nightlife is being blamed for a lot of the outbreaks that have been happening in recent times. Some places in Spain have restricted nightlife, and Catalonia has recently come out and said that the government is going to extend the closure of nightlife venues for a further 15 days. So a lot of nightlife venues in Spain seriously under pressure to survive, with the closures in some areas and restrictions in others, for example, limiting the amount of people that can be in these places, and of course not being allowed to stay open as late as they would normally do. And of course, these restrictions and closures have been very unpopular in this particular industry, and the nightlife industry in Madrid has decided to close in protest for the first time in its history. This closure, which runs from Friday to Saturday, is a protest against the measures decreed by the community of Madrid. And another headline here, Madrilenian hoteliers rebel against the city council for paralyzing 1,500 terrace or outdoor seating licenses. So the Madrid Hotel and Bar Association, not happy with the local government stifling its business, but as we have seen, nightlife and this virus just don't seem to mix. Now, some more news here related to the health situation. We can see here that Spain overtakes the UK COVID-19 case count. According to Johns Hopkins University, it is now the Western European country with the highest number of infections. Spain on Friday surpassed the UK in terms of COVID-19 infections, becoming the Western European country with the highest case count, 309,855, compared with 309,796 in the UK, according to a global dashboard by the Centre for Systems Science and Engineering at Johns Hopkins University. So there we go, Spain overtaking the UK for the country with the highest number of infections in Western Europe. Now, one of the main hotspots in Spain, the Basque Country, has come out in recent days and admitted that there is a second wave in that area. Basque Country has recognised the second wave of the virus and sees the new normal as impossible. A councillor explained that the Basque Health Service is especially concerned about infections in large cities such as Bilbao, which accumulates 126 new cases. So a second wave in the Basque Country, and admitting that the new normal just isn't possible. So even with all of the new rules and regulations in place, they just can't get the health situation under control, especially in big cities. So with news like that coming from the Basque Country, we can see the blueprint for other Spanish cities in coming months. Now, some news about how the first wave of the pandemic was handled in Spain. A group of public health experts have come out and demanded an external review on the management of the virus pandemic in Spain. They asked that a commission of independent experts evaluates the response to the coronavirus given by the regional and central governments. More than 300,000 cases, more than 28,000 confirmed deaths, almost 20,000 in nursing homes, an excess mortality of 44,000 people, and more than 50,000 infected health workers led a score of public health experts to think that Spain's results in the COVID epidemic are much worse than they were. And the results don't seem logical given that Spain has one of the best health systems in the world and is at position 15 in the World Health Security Index. And let's be honest, a review into the handling of the situation is necessary to see exactly what went wrong, who is to blame, and why Spain, with apparently one of the best health systems in the world, had so many cases and excess deaths from the pandemic. And finally, some news on the former King Juan Carlos. The mystery surrounding his whereabouts has been resolved. And as we can see here, Spain's former king is staying at a luxury hotel in Abu Dhabi. The 82-year-old reportedly checked into the exclusive Emirates Palace Hotel after fleeing Spain. So he's not in Portugal, he's not in the Dominican Republic, he's not in Margate eating fish and chips, he's in Abu Dhabi. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from the last video. The first one here from 0101. As an American considering remote working in Spain, I briefly looked into the tax question asked in the video. It's true that you have to file taxes in the US when you live in Spain or any other country. You receive a tax credit for any taxes paid in Spain. Since Spain's taxes are likely higher, you probably won't owe anything in the US. Filing abroad is still a pain in the ass though. Yeah, thanks for the comment. It was related to the situation of remote working. Somebody mentioned the other day that they were thinking about coming to Spain and working remotely and whether it was a good idea, and maybe the Spanish government was trying to promote this type of thing. And I think I mentioned the other day that it's easier for European citizens to do this, but people from other parts of the world obviously have to look into visa requirements, whether they can come and live in a country like Spain, and of course all of the questions related to paying income tax. Now, I'm still an Australian citizen, but I'm a resident in Spain, but in Australia I'm a non-resident for tax purposes, which means I don't have to pay taxes in that country, and it also means that I am exempt from voting, because remember that in Australia there's a compulsory voting system, and if you don't vote you get fined. So you have to make sure that your name is off that register. I don't think that's a problem in the States. I don't think voting is compulsory in the States, but I know that there can be tax issues, and basically you need to know where you stand when it comes to paying taxes. Because remember that if you spend more than 183 days in a country like Spain, you are obliged to pay taxes in Spain. One here from Isabel. As a Spanish citizen, I think monarchies are not the problem. Corruption is the problem, and this happens also in republics. The Spanish monarchy is much cheaper than the British one. I read it is the cheapest in Europe. Yeah, Isabel, thanks for the comment. You're right. Corruption is one of the main problems. It doesn't matter if you are a republic or a monarchy. Corruption is one of the things that will destroy a country very, very quickly. And as we have seen over the years, Spain has had a huge problem with blatant corruption from especially politicians. And as we can see now, Juan Carlos is also being accused of corruption. And the Spanish monarchy does have the reputation of being cheap. I think we said the other day that they have a budget that they need to live within. Not exactly sure what the amount is, but I remember many, many years ago talking to somebody who worked in the tax department in Spain, and she told me that although the budget seems quite modest, the secondary costs of the royal family are huge when we talk about travel costs, security costs, and all of the other costs that don't get reported to the Spanish people. We know that they have a budget, but we don't see the secondary costs of the security, of the royal guard, and of course that's also one of the issues. One here from Paul. Has anyone considered that an increase in Brits moving to the EU to live could be because these people have retired and have the money to enjoy a different way of life? In many cases, I suspect it has nothing to do with Brexit. Yeah, Paul, thanks for the comment. Maybe you're right. It might not have anything to do with Brexit. maybe people were planning to come to live in Spain or another European country all along. They were not happy with the way they were living in the UK, maybe not happy with the weather, maybe not happy with the style of life, maybe not happy with the way the country was going, and decided to move to a European destination to get a better quality of life. But I think maybe what Brexit did was speed up the decisions for a lot of people, and maybe that is why we saw an increase. I think it was a 30% increase in people formalising the paperwork in European countries and of course leaving the UK. One here from Paul, I think you meant to say slip, slap, slop. By the way, you used the word yobbo in a video the other day. That might require some explanation to the uninitiated. Yeah, Paul, thanks for the comment. I think you're referring to another comment in which somebody said that I'm looking tanned at the moment, but I said with my skin it's impossible to get tanned, and that slogan, slip, slop, slap, if anybody doesn't know, was what we used in Australia back in the 80s or maybe the 90s to warn people against the dangers of the sun, telling people to slip on a shirt, slap on a hat, and slop on sunscreen. A very popular jingle back in the day. And of course the word yobbo, we use the word yobbo for people that are a little bit uncouth, people that maybe get drunk in public, cause a few problems, people that are a little bit disrespectful to others. And it is Aussie slang, and sometimes a few Aussie words do come out that people have trouble to understand. But if you go to a good dictionary nowadays, you can see what these words mean, and normally they have a little thing next to them that says Australian slang, if you are wondering. One here from Guillermo. Hi, thanks for your English videos and the subtitles. They are very useful. I'm learning a lot and all thanks to you. Yeah, hi Guillermo. Thanks for the comment and glad to see that you are improving your English with these videos. Although sometimes the English is not 100% perfect. I had a few people pull me up the other day on something that I said which apparently wasn't 100% correct, and I apologize for that to all of the English teachers out there. Sometimes I do speak a little bit too quickly. Maybe I say something that isn't considered grammatically correct, but you understand what I'm trying to say, right? But I'll try to speak with perfect English grammar in the future. One here from Gree. If you think that the monarchy is obsolete in the 21st century, then I can assure you that a republic is not the answer either. Just look at France. It's a complete mess with technocrats in every sector and not in touch with reality on the ground, not to mention corruption. People are relying too much on the state, and if you want to live your life off the grid, the state wants to know why and try to get you back in the matrix. Yeah, agree. Thanks for the comment. I admit that there is no perfect system in the world. What was it that Churchill once said? And about France, I don't really have much experience or knowledge about France, but I do know that Spain is a very bureaucratic country. Politicians, of course, are out of touch with the general population because they've gone into these bubbles since they were 18 or 19 years old called political parties, and they know perfectly how these political parties work, but they don't really have much of an idea what's happening in the greater society. And that happens in many, many countries around the world. And another famous person once said, once politicians become professional, you've got a real problem in your society. Basically, that's what happens in Spain. As I said, people go into these parties out of university, never worked in real jobs in their life a lot of the times, and that's one of the main problems. And if you want to live off the grid in a country like Spain, also very, very difficult to do. The freedoms that you have in countries like the States to live off the grid, homeschooling, those things just don't exist in Spain. So you have to go into the system, and that's what they want. One here from Nikolai. As expected, Denmark changed the travel guide today at 4 o'clock. All of Spain is now a quarantine country. Travelers in Spain can continue their vacation without quarantine, but anyone who travels to Spain from today at 4 must go into quarantine when they return to Denmark. Yeah, Nikolai, thanks for the comment. As we know, that list is steadily growing of countries that are putting a quarantine on people returning from Spain. Denmark, as you said, being one of the countries to join that list. And as we saw at the beginning of the video, for a lot of people, Spain is just too risky at the moment. One here from Harry. Loved your one sentence in Spanish. It would be fun if you kept just one sentence, just as you have, and let us see if we can understand it. Yours is the only site I visit every day. Your segments are the perfect combination of news, opinion, and discussion. I think the rain must be marvelous, but I'll have to listen again to figure out where. Yeah, Harry, thanks for the comment. The expression that I said the other day was La lluvia en Sevilla es una maravilla. And that was said in the Spanish translation of My Fair Lady. So La lluvia en Sevilla es una maravilla. The rain in Seville is wonderful. And the Spanish saying today is No hay mal que por bien no venga. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. I welcome debate as long as it doesn't get too toxic. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. See you in the next one. Hasta luego.